Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. North Country off-grid here in northern Idaho, which has become a target, if you will, from national media, and this extends back to Coeur d'Alene's citizens, armed right-wing racist citizens coming out and openly taking up arms, waiting for a threat to cross the border and come to the town. And we're going to talk about that stuff because NPR put out an article. Absolute garbage, but it is a national narrative that has taken place, and Coeur d'Alene, North Idaho, continues to be the target because North Idaho showed what a successful resistance looks like. Really quick, guys, before we get into the video, which we are going to talk about many hot topics related to this, flash sale from Olight. We're going to go real quick, show you guys Olight Warrior X Pro on sale. Couple of different flashy colors for this thing. This is a bad light, extremely bright. You could attach this one to a weapon light, which will scare the shit out of NPR. Olight also has the new Olantern out, which I haven't had time to test it. They got samples to me pretty late, so I can't tell you good or bad on this one, guys. Maybe we'll save it for another one, but there you go. Links in the description below. Go ahead and check them out. Of course, if you use my code NCOG10, you get 10% off of not just sale items, but the other items, while the rest of the sale items are like 40% off. All right, guys, we're going to cover the article. We're going to cover what a lot of mainstream media is talking about here in Coeur d'Alene, in northern Idaho, painting every gun owner as a crazy white right-wing extremist. And I am going to debunk their bullshit article because their article's chock full of lies, of course bias, because that's just how media is this day. They're absolute liars, and I'll prove it. So it's common to vilify the militias, guys. It's an easy target, right? It is the armed populace. It is people who take up arms, and you'll hear the narrative of, oh, they're a bunch of G.I. Joe wannabes, or people who are too big of cowards to serve in the military, and so they're just out in the woods playing G.I. Joe. Now, the issue with that narrative is this: many people inside militias are veterans. They are ex-military. They bring their training. They teach people who might just be civilians who are also willing to answer the call of the militia or willing to be a part of it, and they teach them that stuff. So to pretend like they're all G.I. Joes, some of them were. And I think that's what bothers the media the worst, is the fact that they know that they can't just paint us all as a joke, because some of these groups are well disciplined, some of these groups are well trained, and some of these groups are for real. Okay, so here's the article title, guys, and we'll start with the title and then we'll go into the article. I'll read some of it to you and we will go over it. Are paramilitary extremists being normalized? Look to Idaho for the answers. That is the title of this put out by NPR. Couple of things, guys. One, it is not illegal to be part of the militia. The body of America, the able-bodied men and women of America, fighting age and able to defend their country. You make up the militia. You are the militia. Now, being in a militia, totally acceptable. Now, paramilitary activity, not acceptable. Paramilitary activity is not acceptable. That would be the equivalent of a standing army in America, a foreign standing army, which is not allowed here. You are not allowed to create your own army aside from the armies of America. That would be illegal. That would be treasonous. You're not allowed to form your own standing army. Paramilitary activity would be a paramilitary force acting on their own with their own agenda. Now, the reason that they continue to use the term paramilitary is because they are able to legally prosecute people for paramilitary actions within the United States. So what the media is doing is they're driving home that narrative, and of course they're going to continue to repeat the word paramilitary, paramilitary, paramilitary over and over and over to get the sheep, the people who just watch the clips and the highlights, to brainwash those people into thinking, oh wow, there's a paramilitary group up in this area, and that's bad. They're bad. So what they're doing is they're continuing to brainwash through the lies of the media by using paramilitary over and over. Same as right-wing extremists. They continue to repeat it over and over and over to make people look crazy. They want you to seem crazy. But in the article, they don't actually go and talk to any crazy people. Now, if we're all a bunch of crazy extremists, it should be pretty easy to get a video of an interview with someone spouting off some pretty crazy stuff. The issue is NPR did not interview anybody. They didn't interview any of the heads of the militias or any organizations such as 3%ers. They like to lump everyone together. If you are a weapon-owning American and you exercise your Second Amendment rights, they want to paint you as an extremist. They want to paint you as a right-wing supremacist, a white supremacist, right? They tie it all together, guys, across the board, and unfortunately, Northern Idaho has a steep history in racism. We were home to the Aryan nations at one time. We have had bombings in this area. We have had people shot at, probably killed, related to racism in this area. Now, it is also easy to paint Northern Idaho as a racist area because it is predominantly white. There are mostly white people who live in this area. I don't know if that's just geographical. I don't know if it's the history. I don't know, but here's the issue, guys. Anybody who is in their mid-30s, such as myself, we were 10, 11, 12 years old when the Aryan nations used to parade yearly downtown in this little town. We were kids. Yet that stigma is still being attached to us, although I think they've been gone for well over a decade now. Although the Aryan nations has been gone for well over a decade due to a lawsuit that took place when one of their security guards, or multiple security guards, shot at a vehicle driving by their compound that happened to have, I believe it was a Native American woman and her child in the car. A couple of groups came together and they represented the woman and her child, and they were able to bankrupt the Aryan nations up here, and since then the Aryan nations group has completely dissolved. Now, I know for a fact that there's probably some racist people in this area, definitely some separatists in this area, people who are okay with it being white and living that way. I also know that I know from experience that there are many people who were involved in that movement when they were younger, who have grown up, who have found God, and who have changed their ways, and they have repented from their ways, and that history no longer defines them. Now, Northern Idaho, the media wants to take that history and they want to define Northern Idaho under that light. It is a weak play. It is an absolute chicken shit angle to take, but they continue to do it instead of going downtown and talking to the people who were actually there, or getting involved when it took place. And we're talking about gund'ALENE 2020, this year, when everyone and their dog came out to Sherman Avenue in anticipation for Antifa coming. Now, the media wants to paint it as, oh, these were just rumors, they got all hyped up, nothing actually happened, they were chasing ghosts. We have verifiable proof that Antifa was in fact there, 100%. Media didn't do anything to try and dig up any proof of it. Antifa members were in fact there. There are multiple groups here who have verifiable intel, provable. It's a fact. Groups were talking about it. They came here and they saw what was going on, and they chose to no longer come and play that game. And why would they, guys? Now, the media wants to play it off like, haha, you guys are a joke. You were chasing ghosts. What happened was that opposition showed up and they saw what they were facing. They saw what was probably nationally one of the biggest turnouts of American citizens using their Second Amendment to protect this area, to come and say, hey, if you're coming here to trash this town, we're standing up for it. Now, why you'd want to demonize that, I'm not really sure. But we do know for sure that if Antifa would have come and the BLM would have come and destroyed the town, of course it would have been just some instigators inside of a peaceful protest, because that's the narrative that they're pushing, right? Mostly peaceful, but fiery protest, right? As the building's on fire behind them. The left-wing media will say whatever they're told to say. They're not unbiased journalists. They very much are absolute garbage, continuing the narrative that we are hearing today. So that is a little bit of history of Northern Idaho. Yes, many racist roots leading back to Northern Idaho. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there's not racist people in Idaho, but I'm going to challenge you this, NPR, hashtag NPR. You guys hashtag NPR this thing. I challenge you to openly find a bunch of racist people in the militias up here. I challenge you to do it. I'm almost going to guarantee that you won't do it. Now, I cannot speak for all the militia groups in this area. There are a few militias. They're pretty squared away, and I would have to say that if they had open racism in their ranks, they would be kicking the people out. I can tell you the real 3%ers of Idaho do not tolerate racism in their ranks. Now, although I fit the absolute bill of a white, bearded, racist redneck, I am telling you straight up, you will not find racist members inside the real 3%ers of Idaho. You will not find it. It is not tolerated. It is not allowed. And I can almost guarantee the other militias have the same principles and the way that they run their operation. Almost guarantee it. There's that slight little bit, guys, where I can't necessarily guarantee it, but I'm telling you that the overwhelming amount, you're not going to find it up here. You're not going to find the people. We might be easy to label lynch. We might be easy to look at and cast your judgment onto us because most of us are white. But I can tell you that you will find color, you will find other races, you will find other ethnicities in our groups. Verifiable. NPR, you want an interview with some of them? You go ahead and email me here. I can provide you with the email. You can have a phone conversation with people we have that are not white, that are not Caucasians. And you'll be proven wrong. Now, if we're a racist organization, if these militias are racist organizations, they're not going to have people of color in their ranks. That's just the way of it. But what NPR does not want to do is they do not want to paint it as a successful opposition to a possible crisis that's taking place all over the U.S. You're seeing towns burning. You're seeing people get shot. You're seeing people get beat up for their ideologies. But you did not see it in North Idaho from either side. BLM was protesting. Antifa was on their way, but they did not come. And there was no paramilitary actions taking place in Northern Idaho. You can't find it. You could certainly try. You can say, oh, a bunch of armed people show up, and you can call it paramilitary, but that was the largest display of an unorganized collection of American gun owners that came together and said, hey, we're all going to go ahead and protect our neighborhood. So I do find it interesting that in this article they are talking about what took place in Coeur d'Alene, where all the armed people showed up, yet they have to go back in time and talk about the time when there was racist organizations here, when there was hateful organizations here, and those hateful organizations did in fact commit violence on behalf of their organization. Now, trying to paint the American Redoubt as a racist area is just the way that they're trying to target this area. I don't see a purpose of it. There are black people who live here. There are Chinese people who live here. There are Mexican people who live here. And I doubt you're going to find hate crimes taking place. I can't even think of the last time that I heard of a hate crime taking place in this area. I don't know that anyone has been charged with a hate crime in over a decade in this area. I could be wrong. I have not seen it. So one of the other points they try to make in this garbage article is the fact that they interviewed just the mayor of Sandpoint, who is a liberal mayor. They had an issue up north where a bunch of high school BLM supporters were coming out to march against systemic racism. And a county commissioner put out a call to have a bunch of armed people show up to counter this protest, this march. These are two separate events. What happened in Sandpoint is totally different than what happened in Coeur d'Alene. What took place in Coeur d'Alene had a verifiable threat that was coming to the city of Coeur d'Alene. What happened in Sandpoint was someone making a bad call, putting out a call for armed militia, putting out a call for armed citizens to be there to keep an eye on things. Two totally different scenarios, totally different situations lumped into one, and now the media has taken both. They're allowing the mayor to be up here with his liberal point of view, and they interviewed him, asking him his point of view on what took place down in Coeur d'Alene, although I can almost guarantee you he wasn't even there. One thing you don't see in all of these articles coming up, especially this one in NPR, is although they said that some citizens were a little overwhelmed, don't quote me on that term, but they were a little taken aback by the amount of people that were armed and walking around. Sure, it's a stunning sight. I myself was actually very impressed, I really couldn't believe how many armed people had showed up. I think everyone was a little bit in awe. Now, it is no surprise that there's that many guns in town. Not even a surprise. There is a gun culture in this area. We've all grown up hunting and shooting. We do it for fun. It's what we do with our money when we have some extra. We buy some ammo, we go to the range with the boys, and we have a blast. So I think one of the biggest issues is we have a culture shock. We have the rest of the U.S. who are not a gun culture. We have these liberal reporters who definitely are not fans of firearms and probably didn't grow up in a firearm lifestyle. And so they're very shocked by what they see, and so all they can do is panic and call it something. We're going to call it something. Let's call it a paramilitary operation. Unfortunately for them, the reality of the situation is everyone up in this area is armed. Heavily armed, AR-15s, AK-47s. We'd all own RPGs if the government wasn't infringing on our Second Amendment rights, and you would still see that this area is the way that this area is. There is not an increased amount of violence. There is not a high death rate, murder rate in this area, and it is because the populace is well armed. It is hard to victimize people who are well armed. Welcome to America. So I'll read a little bit from the article here really quick, guys, and to just show you how out of touch this mayor is with the reality of the gun culture, and you guys are going to catch it. Many of you are going to catch it right away in this simple quote. Quote, "These were people in full camo fatigues." Only a couple, actually. I only saw a few people head to toe in camo, not a ton. Back to the article. Quote, "With AR-15s, multiple clips." Did you guys catch it? Anyone who is not of the gun culture, who doesn't know what they are talking about when it comes to firearms and parts, are going to call firearm magazines clips. Because they don't know what they're talking about, because they're not in this culture, they're not familiar with guns, they're not familiar with people who have guns, and they just don't have any idea what they're talking about. He's out of his league because he's not in the culture. Period. That's all it is. It's not a clip. It's a magazine. You don't even know your terms. Simple mistake? No, it's not. You're just ignorant to what it is, which is fine. Bask in your ignorance. The issue with that is this: someone who's never been on the range with an AR-15 or an AK-47, someone who's never touched one, someone who's never seen one up close, is probably going to shit themselves when they see an entire block, a city block, multiple city blocks, an entire drag filled with people carrying them. Yeah, it's going to be a little scary to you because you don't get outside your bubble. So the article goes on to say that Rogstad, that is the mayor up in Sandpoint, says the paramilitary and the other armed citizens quickly overwhelmed what he says was a small protest against, there it is, the paramilitary and the other armed. Who's the paramilitary? Who are they? Bet you can't point them out. Bet you can't find the organization. Who's the paramilitary? You had a standing county commissioner say, hey, it would be nice if some neighbors came to keep eyes on whatever, come and watch, whatever. I don't even know the quote. That's all it was. It was a county commissioner who said, hey, it'd be nice if we had some folks up here to keep eyes on stuff in case things got out of hand. That is the basic essence of what he said. How is that a paramilitary operation? That is a call for help. That is, hey neighbor. That's like saying, hey, I'm broke down. Anyone want to help? And 1,000 armed people show up. There's only a couple people, a couple hundred that showed up in Sandpoint. A couple hundred people show up on their own. on their own. It's not a paramilitary operation right there. There's zero organization to it. You literally had a county commissioner ask for help, and a bunch of people showed up later that evening. So now that we're talking about an absolutely peaceful night of gun toting around Coeur d'Alene, which actually took place for about a week. It was about a week, and it sort of just fizzled off as the threat deteriorated with it. Not a single discharge, not a single shooting, not a single act of violence. I think one person was arrested for throwing an egg. I think that was the only call that came out, and I believe it was a BLM protester. I think. Doesn't really matter, guys. My point is this. It was a successful community gathering of like-minded individuals exercising their Second Amendment right. There was no violence attached to it. So how do we vilify this thing? Well, now we have to attach this group in northern Idaho, this community in northern Idaho, we have to attach them to these militia members in Michigan who tried to, quote-unquote, arrest a standing governor to hold her trial for treason, I believe it was. Now, I think that this might play into something else. Of course, the FBI was watching them for quite a while, so they might be able to get them on conspiracy charges. I think their lawyer will possibly talk about how these citizens actually came together with the idea to execute a citizen's arrest against the mayor. If I was their lawyer, that's the angle I would shoot for. But to commit a citizen's arrest against a standing mayor for her treasonous acts of how she shut down the state, put people out of work, all of that stuff, which we've seen all over the U.S., but you had a group of people wanting to do something about it. Now, initial reports were it was Michigan militia members who were involved in this. As time has gone on, information has been passed down, and what it looks more like happened was a group of people who are seemingly maybe leftist, actually, who were not members of the militia, the Michigan militia. They actually came together with this plot, and then they tasked a couple of Michigan militia members with helping out. And when the Michigan militia, constitutional militia members found out what they were planning, I believe they tipped off the FBI so the FBI could look at what they had going on, and I believe the FBI stepped in before it got out of hand. Don't quote me on that, guys. That's kind of what it's looking like. Of course, it's hard to differentiate from all the intel and really put out a positive, accurate information statement. But that's what it's looking like. So, of course, we have to vilify the Michigan militia, which is arguably one of the biggest militias, well-known, renowned militias in all of the U.S. And, of course, we got to take that lump of crazies and we got to tie it to this lump of crazies, and then we got to lump them all together because we are targeting white men who are in militias. And why is it, guys? We're going to just sum it up right here because this video is getting long. Why is it that we want to target white men with guns and call them racist, call them white supremacists, although we can't prove it, call them extremists to vilify them in front of the people? What is the point of that? The point of that, I believe, is this. This is my opinion. As the left continues to push their agenda, their socialist, communist agendas, as the left continues to excuse BLM and Antifa for trashing cities, committing violence, committing murders, burning down cities, targeting police, targeting citizens, as they continue their mass civil unrest, in the hopes to affect the outcoming election, a presidential election of the Americans, they have identified that there is a large group of people willing to oppose them. And now if this people, these groups in America become the new political power in America, they are literally staring at the faces of the men who will oppose their tyranny, who will oppose their communism. So for you to think that you could win the White House, instill communism into this country, and no one is going to oppose you is ludicrous. But they have identified the people who will. That people, those people, that's called the militia. Those are the people that they are trying to vilify now in hopes to later be able to unroll their agenda and then target those people. And of course, what do? You target them. You say over and over and over that they're bad people. You target them. Then you call them terrorists, then you try to take away their firearms. Now, I could be wrong, guys. That is just my opinion. I don't know why else the mainstream media would continue to try and vilify a group of people willing to stand for the freedoms of America on both sides of the aisle. The men and women who are all about the Constitution, unless you're trying to mess with the Constitution, guys. Then I think that is their I think that is their goal. I will link the NPR article down in the description below. You guys can go and check it out. Let them know what you think of it. It is absolutely just biased garbage writing. I challenge you to prove anything that you said in there to be legitimate. Lots of accusations, lots of label lynching, and lots of inaccurate reporting. It's sad, guys. Unfortunately, it is very sad. And one thing that they're going to realize is while they're painting us as the racists, trying to keep the whites and the blacks hating on each other in America, what they're going to realize is that the blacks and the whites are all tired of the media constantly lying to them.